On the afternoon of July 25, 2024, none other than Ismael El Mayo Zambada, one of the major leaders of the Sinaloa Cartel, was arrested. According to many experts, he is the true boss of bosses of this cartel. Although El Chapo Guzman received a lot of media attention, El Mayo has been an elusive figure for Mexican authorities for over 40 years, fueling theories ranging from protection at high levels of the Mexican and even US governments to his extreme caution in managing his actions, or perhaps a combination of both. On July 25, 2024, El Mayo Zambada, accompanied by one of El Chapo's sons, was arrested after landing in a private plane at an airport in El Paso, Texas, where DEA agents were waiting to proceed with his arrest. This could indicate that they surrendered after negotiating a deal with US authorities. However, to understand the significance of this event and its potential impact on the criminal landscape of Mexico, one needs a deep understanding of the history of El Mayo Zambada and his role within the Sinaloa Cartel. Few have been able to study the origins of Ismael El Mayo Zambada in detail due to his extremely cautious and reserved nature. With a low profile, he granted only one interview in 4 decades, in 2010. However, journalists like the Mexican Anabel Hernandez, relying on records and testimonies from people close to him, including his favorite son and personal lawyer, have managed to reveal intriguing aspects of this Mexican drug lord. It is crucial to know that Mayo, whose full name is Ismael Zambada Garcia, was born on January 1, 1948, in the community of El Alamo, within the municipality of Culiacan, in the state of Sinaloa, Mexico. So at the time of his arrest, El Mayo is 76 years old. Throughout his criminal career, he has received various nicknames such as El Padrino, MZ, and La Señora, and figures like El Chapo Guzman referred to him with the codename La Cocina when communicating with him. From his youth and adolescence, El Mayo Zambada stood out as a calculating and hard-working individual. He worked as a farm laborer to help support his family, which faced extreme poverty in Sinaloa. However, the beginning of El Mayo's criminal career dates back to 1968 when, at 19 years old, he met Antonio Cruz Vasquez, a Cuban heroin trafficker in New York and New Jersey. In Sinaloa, it was the Cuban Antonio Cruz who introduced him to drug trafficking through a family connection. His brother-in-law Nico married to his sister Modesta Zambada. El Mayo then began coordinating the production of poppy, which is transformed into opium gum and later into heroin. This product was transported from Sinaloa to other destinations in Mexico and eventually trafficked to Tucson, Arizona. By 1977, at the age of 28, El Mayo already had several plantations in Sinaloa and paid corrupt Mexican authorities to facilitate his operations. But it was in 1978, in the US city of Los Angeles, where he truly began to expand his operations on a large scale. It wasn't in Mexico, it was in the United States. At that time, El Mayo wasn't operating under the Sinaloa Cartel's banner, but the idea was already starting to take shape in his mind. In the following years, El Mayo built a logistical empire in Los Angeles to traffic drugs throughout the United States, while most of the millions in profits were received there before being sent in large amounts to Mexico. After the fall of the Guadalajara cartel in 1985, El Mayo gained more power by inheriting demand and expanding his criminal network. Miguel Angel Felix Gallardo and Amado Carrillo Fuentes, the latter known as the Lord of the Skies, and Zambada's godson, were key figures in his network until their respective arrests in 1989. Later, the 1990s, especially the late 90s, marked the golden era for Zambada, following the eventual downfall of several of the Arellano Felix brothers from Tijuana and the death of Amado Carrillo Fuentes, the Lord of the Skies, in 1997. The Pacific Cartel, believed to be the original name of the Sinaloa Cartel, gained considerable strength. During this time, key figures like El Chapo Guzman and José de Jesús Esparragosa Moreno, known as El Azul, emerged as prominent leaders, but El Mayo had the final say. Between 2002 and 2007, what is now known as the Sinaloa Cartel not only established itself as the most powerful criminal organization in Mexico, but also in the world. Its reach expanded beyond the United States, covering markets in about 50 countries, including distant lands such as Malaysia, the Philippines, Nigeria, South Africa, Australia, Spain, and Iceland. In 2000, 2004, the US government offered a $5 million reward for any information leading to the capture of Ismael El Mayo Zambada. This amount increased to $15 million in 2021 and remained until his arrest in 2024. To clear any doubts, it is crucial to point out that although El Chapo played a key role as an operator for the Sinaloa and Pacific Cartel, the true mastermind behind the entire operation was always El Mayo Zambada. El Chapo Guzman became very famous in 1993, especially when he was in the wrong place at the wrong time during the assassination of Mexican Cardinal Juan Jesus Posadas Ocampo in the parking lot of Guadalajara International Airport during the presidency of Salinas de Gortari. This incident marked the beginning of his public notoriety, and his fame was further solidified after escaping from maximum security prisons through the corruption of officials, adding a legendary aura to El Chapo's figure. However, in the shadows and without any media scandals, El Mayo Zambada was always the true leader. And so, in just 6 minutes, you have learned about the origins and rise to power of Ismael El Mayo Zambada, as well as the significance of his recent arrest for both Mexico and the United States. But now, let's change the topic to delve into who exactly the Sinaloa Cartel is and its current position of power. You see, the Sinaloa Cartel is one of the most powerful drug cartels in the world. This criminal organization not only engages in the production and importation of fentanyl, heroin, methamphetamine, and cocaine into the United States and other countries, but it also participates in illicit activities such as extortion, kidnapping, money laundering, vehicle theft, and fuel theft, known in Mexico as huachicoleo. The Sinaloa Cartel has a presence in 15 states of Mexico, completely dominating 6 of them and maintaining near total control in 4, including Sinaloa, which could be considered the cartel's epicenter. Today, after numerous changes and internal adjustments carried out since 2016 when El Chapo was captured, the Sinaloa Cartel no longer functions as a single organization with one head. Instead, it operates as a cartel with 3 factions that vary in cooperation depending on who you ask. These factions are the Mayos, the Chapitos, and the Guanos. The Chapitos, or the menores, are controlled by El Chapo's sons. Ivan Archibaldo Guzman Salazar is recognized as the leader of this group since the capture and subsequent extradition to the United States of Ovidio Guzman, aka El Raton.
Venga, tranquilo, salga aquí, venga. Tranquilo, venga, tranquilo. Pase, por favor, pase, por favor. Salgan los 3, tranquilo, aquí señor. Afuera, tranquilo. Listo, pon aquí tus manos. ¿Traes armas? No, ya.
Tranquilo, tranquilo.
No, él no tiene nada que ver, oiga. Sí, bueno.
Espérame.
Another of El Chapo's sons, who was captured during Operation Mungus Azteca in January 2023. We'll talk more about Ovidio Guzman later because something strange happened with him. Then we have the Guanos, led by Aureliano El Guano Guzman, El Chapo's brother, who maintains his own structure and operations independently. Although there is no complete break with the cartel, the Guanos operate with some autonomy and have a strong presence in places like Badiraguato, as well as in Baja California, Chihuahua, and Guerrero. A 4th branch was disbanded following the recapture of Rafael Caro Quintero on July 15, 2022, who was one of the historical leaders and old-school figures of both the Guadalajara Cartel and the Sinaloa Cartel. Finally, we have the Mayos, or La Mayisa, formerly led by Ismael El Mayo Zambada and his sons. They represent the most powerful faction within the Sinaloa Cartel. Later, I will tell you who is likely to inherit the keys to this kingdom. El Mayo played a very strategic role, not only within the cartel, but also within the Mexican government, primarily serving as the main ally of the Mexican government to pacify territories and negotiate inter-cartel agreements, including the surrender of members from his own group, as we have seen before. El Mayo Zambada has been handing over members of his own organization, including financiers and cooks, and even entire cooking operations, to help the government show they are working and taking action. This serves El Mayo by making sacrifices to remain free and maintain his position above the Sinaloa Cartel without being disturbed. Within the Sinaloa Cartel, El Mayo Zambada was a figure of respect, trust, and negotiation. To wrap up this topic of factions, I want to clarify that the overview I've provided only scratches the surface. Each of these factions has further subdivisions, and the organization and hierarchy are much more complex than you might think. Now, the last known public appearance of Ismael El Mayo Zambada was in 2010 during an interview conducted by journalist Julio Scherer Garcia from the newspaper Proceso. Julio Scherer, who unfortunately has passed away, reported in his article that it was El Mayo who requested the interview, and he felt compelled to conduct it in an isolated location in the Sierra of Sinaloa. Julio recalled his meeting with Zambada as follows. "We sat down to have lunch under a tree in an environment that seemed prepared for a quick escape. The conversation was reserved. Zambada was cautious with his words, reflecting the life of someone constantly on the move. We talked about his family, but he avoided sensitive topics like the situation of his son or his own security. Before finishing, Zambada offered to take a photo with me, a gesture that sealed the authenticity of our meeting. This photo you see on the screen is the one Julio Scherer took with El Mayo Zambada. Since then, there have been no more photos, videos, or interviews. Absolutely nothing. El Mayo became a discreet ghost, maintaining a low profile, which probably explains why, unlike El Chapo, he was never arrested by Mexican authorities. Now, let me summarize the information we have so far about how El Mayo Zambada's arrest took place, as it raises many questions. On July 25th, 2024, a real-time flight monitoring app recorded a private Beechcraft King airplane taking off from Hermosillo, Sonora, Mexico, and landing in Doña Ana County, specifically at the Santa Teresa Airport near El Paso, Texas. It's crucial to mention that DEA and FBI agents were already waiting at the arrival location. Minutes before 2 p.m., a DEA agent and an FBI agent opened the plane's staircase, and El Mayo made one last request. "I don't want to appear weak." He asked everyone present not to say that he had surrendered, but that he had been captured, kidnapped, or deceived. The agents agreed and helped him and Joaquin disembark from the plane. So we have two men, Ismael Zambada Garcia and Joaquin Guzman Lopez, aka El Güero, another of El Chapo Guzman's sons. In 2015, El Güero reportedly participated in the operation to free his father, El Chapo, from the Altiplano prison, a maximum security facility located in Almoloya de Juarez, state of Mexico. El Güero is also linked to Sumap, a Sinaloan chemical equipment company, as well as a real estate company, both sanctioned by the U.S. Department of the Treasury. He is also involved in the operation of super drug labs located in Sinaloa and accused of illicitly trafficking drugs into the United States. For Joaquin Guzman Lopez, the U.S. government offered a reward of up to $5 million for information leading to his location. The latest information available on the morning of July 26th indicates that Frank Perez, Ismael El Mayo Zambada's lawyer, has denied that the drug trafficker voluntarily surrendered to U.S. authorities. The lawyer told journalist Keegan Hamilton of the Los Angeles Times the following: "My client did not cross the border by plane of his own free will, as some reports suggested. I have no further comments to make, aside from clarifying that he did not voluntarily surrender. He was taken against his will." Additionally, lawyer Perez reported that El Mayo Zambada appeared before a federal court in El Paso, Texas, on the morning of July 26th and pleaded not guilty to the 12 charges he faces related to drug trafficking and organized crime. Now, let's take a more personal look. Luis Chaparro managed to contact one of El Mayo's older grandchildren who shared a more intimate view of the capo's current state. "My grandfather was very sick, as you knew, and his life was coming to an end. All he ever wanted was the chance to see VZ and MG at least once more," said the grandchild, whose father is Ismael Zambada Siqueiros, known as El Mayo Flaco and the current head of La Mayiza. He revealed details about a crucial meeting where El Mayo tried to convince the Chapitos to surrender to U.S. authorities. Of course, they didn't listen. They don't listen to anyone anymore, much less my grandfather. He has always been good to them, supported them, cared for them, so he probably knows what's best. It is also noteworthy that the plane in which El Mayo arrived was originally from Doña Ana County and not a private Mexican plane. Curious, isn't it? That's a question for lawyer Frank Perez. Another source within the U.S. government confirmed there was a deal. "This is your last chance to cooperate, get benefits, be free soon, or be captured and imprisoned for the rest of your lives," said the agent. The smartest accepted the deal. The dumbest decided to stay and fight. Zambada's grandchild also says the deal was primarily to have the opportunity to see his children and his brother Reynaldo El Rey Zambada one more time. The U.S. authorities were closing in on him. very close to capturing him. He did what he thought was best. Something quite curious also happened at the time of these events. Ovidio Guzman, El Raton, son of El Chapo, was released 2 days before El Mayo surrendered on July 25th. And this is not a theory. It is confirmed on the U.S. Federal Bureau of Prisons website. You are seeing it on the screen right now, and you can verify it yourself with complete confidence. However, a source from a U.S. federal agency said that he might still be in custody, as he currently faces charges that have not been dismissed, but they could not rule out the possibility of an interagency agreement to capture El Mayo. It is possible that Ovidio is now in a state prison in Chicago, as has happened with other Mexican capos. This move, so close in time to El Mayo's arrest, only leaves us wondering if El Raton has something to do with all this. According to his court schedule, Ovidio Guzman is due to appear for an in-person hearing on September 30th, 2024. Now, you might say, how could it not please both Mexico and the United States that El Chapo was extradited to the US in 2017 and that El Mayo is now also facing trial and imprisonment? Well, history in Mexico has shown us that fragmentation within cartels generates violence, and it has been that way for many years. It was like this in the past with other cartels, and it will be the same in this case as well. And don't just take my word for it. Mike Vigil, former head of international operations for the DEA, said, "In this way, the Sinaloa Cartel could face even more severe fragmentation in the coming months or years. This is due to the fact that the Chapitos and the Guanos factions would fight for full control of the criminal organization. You'll have El Guano, El Chapo's brother, fighting to take control, you'll have the Chapitos fighting for control, and you'll have El Mayo's relatives doing the same. This will create a very bloody conflict," declared Mike Vigil. Another important point to consider is that a DEA report titled 2024 National Drug Threat Assessment indicates that El Mayo Zambada is in a deteriorated state of physical health. Specifically, he is known to have suffered from diabetes for years. However, recent reports indicate that his condition has significantly worsened in recent months, affecting several organs and causing serious vision problems. Despite his deteriorating health, El Mayo Zambada showed enough strength to board a plane, travel for over 3 hours, be arrested, and now face a legal and judicial process that could extend for several months or even years. Mike Vigil, former head of international operations for the DEA, has mentioned that initial reports indicate El Mayo Zambada surrendered to authorities. However, the structure of the Sinaloa Cartel will continue to operate normally. Journalist Luis Chaparro agrees with this perspective, and I personally share this opinion as well. Now, let me give you some interesting details I have gathered, which you can take as you prefer. A crucial point revealed by journalist Anabel Hernandez in her book El Traidor is that Vicente Zambada Niebla, aka El Vicentillo, son of El Mayo Zambada, who is now free in the United States, had negotiated a deal with US authorities in 2010 to facilitate his own extradition. However, upon arriving in the United States, that agreement was not recognized, leading El Vicentillo and his lawyer Fernando Gaxiola to publish their version of events in Anabel Hernandez's book. So, there you have it. There is a precedent for the Zambada family negotiating with the DEA to surrender other cartel members. In fact, Jesus Vicente Zambada Niebla testified against Joaquin El Chapo Guzman in 2019, who was then sentenced to life imprisonment. As El Mayo Zambada's grandson told Luis Chaparro, some experts suggest that El Mayo might have decided to surrender as part of an undisclosed agreement, possibly to be close to his children in his final years, starting with El Vicentillo, his favorite, who is in a witness protection program and cannot leave the United States. Then we have Ismael Zambada Imperial, also known as El Mayito Gordo, who was extradited to the United States in December 2019 and pleaded guilty to drug trafficking charges in 2020. Finally, Serafin Zambada Ortiz, aka El Flaco, was arrested in 2013 and released in September 2016 after reaching a cooperation agreement. Since Serafin holds US citizenship, he has not been deported to Mexico. And let's not forget his brother, Jesus Reynaldo, aka El Rey Zambada, who is very dear to the Mexican capo. You see, 3 sons and a brother in the United States. Think about it coldly. El Mayo, a 76-year-old man with severe health problems and possibly in the last years of his life, has completed his journey in the world of drug trafficking. He's done it all, had it all, and experienced everything, both good and bad. He no longer has the physical or mental strength to continue leading one of the most powerful cartels in the world. At this stage, what he probably wants most is to be close to his family, to see his children and brother one last time before going completely blind and dying with some dignity and affection. As the song El Árbol del Mayo says, I live in luxury and riches, but those I love are not here. The arrest or surrender of Mayo Zambada represents the final blow to the Sinaloa Cartel. I've been saying this for years. This cartel is being torn apart, facing internal conflicts and then being taken down one by one. We started with El Chapo, the #1 figure, then a bunch of operators around him, followed by his sons and the operators around them, and now Mayo Zambada has surrendered. This cartel, and I can say this confidently and in no uncertain terms, no longer exists as a cartel. It is not an organization as such anymore. It is just small factions and individuals, nothing more. This cartel has been completely broken from within. Now, the question is, what comes next? Who will inherit Los Mayos in Sinaloa, Mexico? Well, it is very likely that it will be another son of El Mayo, Ismael Zambada Siqueiros, also known as El Mayito Flaco. What happens next is interesting. If El Mayito Flaco and the Chapitos fail to maintain a harmonious relationship and tensions arise with El Guano, we could be on the brink of an internal conflict. And let's not forget the factor of Mencho's CJNG, which could take advantage of this instability to deal heavy blows to its Sinaloa rival. This entire situation could trigger a prolonged regional war, potentially exacerbating violence in Sinaloa, the Golden Triangle area, and even various parts of Mexico to levels not seen since the Narco War during Felipe Calderon's government. From El Mayo's perspective, several corrupt Mexican politicians will now be on edge, as it depends solely on him whether he testifies against them. Heads will roll. Zambada was known as the negotiator, a crucial intermediary in all kinds of problems, disputes, business negotiations, and conflicts between drug traffickers, political officials, and members of his own family. Many claim that Zambada understood that violence was bad for business, so he preferred to avoid it at all costs. However, his grandson offers a slightly different perspective. He knew that as long as he was useful to the government, they would keep him in his position and he would gain benefits. Additionally, a Mexican intelligence officer with whom Luis Chaparro has direct contact had this to say about El Mayo. We could ask him to keep the peace in certain regions, to turn over certain individuals, to mediate agreements between rival factions to prevent more violence, or to allow us access to some of the most remote territories in Mexico. And he complied. In the coming days and weeks, more evidence about the arrest will surface, but I don't think the question of whether he was deceived or made a deal will be resolved quickly.